welcome back to the MILELE readings. We are on chapter 37. Things are really progressing and coming to a head. Now, Nathan and Faith are almost at Eden 2. They've so far had an uneventful journey, which makes them feel like it's the calm before the storm. But they did have a chance to discuss things like, you know, people who would pledge loyalty to the New World Order under the New World Chancellor would not be able to enter Genetti, because to enter Genetti, one had to have Eden 2 DNA, which means would have to pledge loyalty to Prince Adani. And so you couldn't pledge loyalty to Prince Adani and also to the New World Order, which was backed by the Velshkis. It was one or the other. They also talked about how humanity had a different relationship with the sovereigns at the beginning. Before they were affected by the toxin, and how because of what Prince Adani did, he basically had to pay a price to be able to retrieve or redeem the key that had been taken from humans and to allow humans once again access to the sovereigns and to Genetti. And Faith really surprised Nathan by asking him to marry her because he had been the one chasing her all along, but now the situation in the world, especially with the world chancellor, and something that Agios had told him about himself, he was reluctant to enter that kind of relationship with her. But she is saying that they would not be able to get married on Eden 2 because at this point she doesn't know that the non-marriage or couple rule was lifted. So she's saying, let's get married here, and then promises to stay on Eden 2 with him. Well, how could he resist that? But it was really Agios, his words and his thoughts, that confirmed that this was the thing to do. Of course, what they talked about with love is that being in love is different from love. That being in love comes and goes, but love lasts, and it is a type of love that is unconditional from the sovereigns. Also, now on Eden 2, oh my, Hope now has to go meet not the world envoy, the world chancellor. He is now, Keiko Bays is now world chancellor. And so she's on her way with Agent Mike, Lieutenant Gideon, and Captain Nick to board a ship to go and meet with the world chancellor, and of course to save baby Moses. And we see a sort of a bittersweet scene where Boa and the boys are waving her off, and Lucas and Cree are just waving madly, and Lucas of course is running along with the vehicles, and we're happy to see that he's able to run as he is still recovering. But we also see a change in Hope, change that has been coming, in that she's willing to die rather than submit to the Council of Nations and to the World Chancellor. So let's keep reading and see how this new Hope is coming along. So this is chapter 37, and we are on the Atlantic Ocean to start. Will you love her, be faithful to her, be willing to lay down your life for her, for as long as you both shall live? The words from earlier in the week echoed in Nathan's mind as he lay looking at his sleeping wife, cradled in his arms. So yes, they did get married. Congratulations to them. He'd woken in the middle of the night, their 6th night as husband and wife. Even though the comforting, familiar hums and creaks of the merchant ship should have lulled him back to sleep. Weighted thoughts and emotions kept him awake. Still, it failed to diminish the awe and the wonder that she was his wife. They'd become one, and, without a doubt, he knew he would willingly give his life for her. Faith Saji Talon, now Faith Saji Kanisa. For the first time, he knew her full name. She was no longer just his special security, restricted from divulging personal information. Her middle and maiden names meant Saja meant fruit and talent meant gift in two different languages. The dim glow of a small bedside lamp brought life to the lion pendant peeking out from the folds of her clothing where it lay nestled. In lieu of a wedding ring, he'd given her the gold pendant, his most precious possession. It tied him to his past, his parents, his twin sister. Was it selfish to have married her, knowing his time was limited? Yet he'd felt the certainty of the sovereign's will. Also, Faith had made it clear that she understood his special identity as the world's most wanted fugitive. With that knowledge, she dared to take him as her husband. The writing on the wall tells me the future is very uncertain for everyone, not just you, she told him a few days ago. Even if we separate here, it won't be long until I see you again. Inhaling deeply and quietly, Nathan released a long breath. It would work out for good. It was one of Agios's most important mantras. For those who loved and followed the sovereign prince, the will of the sovereign emperor would cause everything to work out for good, not evil. Finally, his eyelids grew heavy. Perhaps he could sleep now. New scene. Eden to Waters. The short journey to the meeting place midway between Eden Two's protective mist and the Council of Nation forces would probably be the most uncertain journey Hope would ever take. She truly appreciated the protective support of the three men with her. And Agios? She didn't see him, but she knew he was somewhere there. The agreement was to have Hope board the ship where the world chancellor waited, which had brought strong opposition from Eden Two's powers. However, it was the Council of Nations' absolute condition before allowing her to see baby Moses. Knowing that she would go in a power greater than her own, Hope had agreed. As their boat slowly glided into the white mist, a strange quietness descended, even overriding the sound of the boat's motor. The cool wind stilled, the water calmed, not a bird in sight. Even the strange scent combination of brine and fuel was masked. It was much deeper than Hope expected, and it was like passing through dense fog. She searched around, hoping to catch a glimpse of a silver plane. Nothing. Kinda spooky, Lieutenant Gideon murmured. He was sitting right next to her. I feel like I'm under a silver plane microscope right now, he joked. She could barely see him, but his attempt to put her at ease was endearing. I'm just glad they're there, she whispered back. She looked at the tall, stoic form of Agent Mike. He had his back to them, standing at the front of the boat. Captain Nick was by the navigating officer, and several other officers were strategically positioned around the boat. It was so quiet. Is this the calm before the storm? Hope wondered. Her life jacket made her feel claustrophobic. Then suddenly they were through and on the other side. Hope gasped. There was the sun, outside of Eden 2. It really has gone, Lieutenant Gideon said, voicing her thoughts. To the Council of Nations' credit, the ship waiting at the rendezvous point was smaller than she'd expected, which made it less intimidating. It would also make for an easier transition on board. It was bigger than their patrol boat, was smaller than the main ship ahead, and significantly smaller than the aircraft carriers that had remained since the advent of the embargo on Eden II. A small number of military personnel were stationed on their target ship, and was less in number than Hope had anticipated to accompany such a powerful man. Ms. Kanisa, he's trying to persuade you by showing generosity, Lieutenant Gideon whispered as if reading her thoughts. Don't be fooled by his tactics. Hope nodded. She knew well enough from the past that Keiko's charm and grace, if ignored, would eventually morph into intimidation and force. She just wanted to make sure baby Moses was safe. She was determined a trade would take place, her for him, though this wasn't what the governor and colonel had agreed to. With that thought, she boarded the Council of Nations ship with Agent Mike leading the way. After being assisted by Lieutenant Gideon onto the ship, she was greeted by a pleasant-looking young man. Welcome, Miss Kanisa. Seeing them out of the pea suit was a novelty. With the white mist having decreased the perimeter of Eden II's waters, the Council of Nations forces were able to get closer to the island. They most likely would have encroached further but for the Silver Plains. Of course, it was also still assumed that Eden II's atmosphere had remained unchanged, given the white mist surrounding it still separating it from the rest of the world. This way, please, the young man said, directing her across the ship's deck while pointedly ignoring her companions. Snobbery at its best. Hope couldn't make out Lieutenant Gideon's mumble under his breath, nor Captain Nick's response, but she felt restrained tension from Agent Mike. However, at the sight of baby Moses, everything else faded into the background. Here's the child, Miss Kanisa. He's perfectly fine. The pixie-faced young woman speaking to her was a female counterpart to her initial greeter, all smiles and comfort. She was holding baby Moses in such a way that Hope couldn't see his face. He was dressed in a striped blue and white jumpsuit, complete with matching cap and dark brown toddler shoes. Feeling her eyes cloud and her lips tremble, Hope willed herself not to cry. Why should he see her cry at their reunion? Momo! She moved forward, then stopped. It had been a few weeks. Would he remember her? Held upright in the young woman's arms, baby Moses twisted his head around, his eyes wide and questioning. Then suddenly his face puckered and flushed, followed by a frustrated wail of recognition. It was Hope's undoing. Momo! She cried. He vigorously shoved himself away from his caregiver, and Hope quickly caught him as he fell into her arms. She held him tightly, wishing the life jacket away as his little arms grabbed her neck, her hair, her face. She breathed in his sweet aroma, and he babbled unintelligible words of recognition. They were music to her ears. But all too soon, the music was overridden. Hope froze at the sound of another voice. It was the same as she remembered, but with considerably more arrogance. He is an innocent child, your adopted child. Why have him drawn into all this? Hope slowly turned. Her grip tightened. Baby Moses wiggled in protest. More arrogance on his face, in his bearing. No pea suit, nothing to shield his eyes. His eyes! How was it possible? Was it her imagination? Eden too is not your home, Hope Kala Kanisa. Your home is with me, back in Israel, back at the seat of all power and authority. Impossible. His eyes, once blue, were now dark, almost coal black. Pressure descended on Hope's head. Her heart palpitated, and she struggled to breathe. A sense of unbearable dread enveloped her. What was it? It was familiar, like the aura that came with Keiko Bay's bodyguard, but stronger than she remembered. Where was he? To save. He wasn't by his boss's side, as was always the case. Baby Moses whined. Hope looked at him, seeing the worry in his little face. She loosened her grip. At the same time, something rested on her shoulder. It was Agent Mike's hand. Calmness descended. Boy, meeting Keiko again. Oh boy. But lovely to see Momo. New scene. What do we do? Faith asked, staring ahead. Nathan glanced at her, his wife of 7 days. They were on the ship's bridge with the captain and other officers. All other eyes were focused on the scene outside the bridge's row of windows. The room was solemn, tense. Nathan's gaze returned to the sight that was both a wonder and a terror. He had never approached Eden 2 by ship or from a world free of the mist until now. The merchant ship was entering what looked like a war zone, with Council of Nation forces upon the waters between them and the island. The blockade, though not entirely unexpected, was much denser and more numerous than they had anticipated. As for the island, it could not be seen. Voluminous heaps of white clouds blocked the view completely. It's different, Nathan murmured. Faith's hand found his. It felt tense, cold. He clung to it, wanting to warm it. What is? She asked. He thought of his sister, longing to see her. Would he see her again? He said, the mist is still there, but it's different. New scene. Hope was seated in a comfortable chair, still holding baby Moses. With her life jacket now removed, he seemed content on her lap, nestled against her chest, sucking his thumb. His warmth and baby scent were wonderfully familiar, but she couldn't dwell on that under the scrutiny of the trio before her, nor with the strong sense of discord that filled the room. She could not have envisioned such a day. They were in a well-equipped officers' mess room, sitting at a large table. The New World Chancellor, impeccably dressed in suit and tie, sat across from her. A woman whose age she couldn't guess and an older man were seated on either side of him. They'd been introduced as Scarlet Babylon and Mandex Nabun. She knew who they were, but the puzzle over the missing bodyguard remained. This is such fun, Scarlet said, pursing plush red lips. But I'm a little disappointed, Keiko. Red-tipped nails moved backwards, meticulously easing her long auburn hair over one shoulder, a bright contrast to her dark gray, tightly fitted blazer. I thought I would see the famous, or is it infamous, island. Sparkling jewelry on her ears, neck, and fingers bore evidence of wealth and indulgence. Keiko didn't respond. His gaze had barely left Agent Mike, who was standing behind Hope. Even with irritation now marring his beautiful features, she could see that not much about his appearance had changed, except for his eyes. She could not fathom the change in his eyes. The 2 other men had been hindered, but Agent Mike had insisted on accompanying her, and for some reason he'd been allowed. This isn't your business, Keiko said forcefully and unexpectedly, still looking over her head. The choice has to be hers. Scarlet smiled flirtatiously, but her eyes were like a viper. Your prince wants what is not his, she declared, her voice daring like a dagger. This world and the people. They have a choice, Agent Mike said in a steady voice. Mandax, who seemed mostly fixated on hope, spoke up for the first time. The people give up their right to rule the world, but each one should have their own rule over themselves. The jowls of his jaw quivered with intensity against the high neck of his loose, floor-length tunic. The tunic was dark brown with intricate, multicolored embroidery running down its sides. He paid the compensation price with his life, Agent Mike declared. They have a choice and are welcomed under his rule. Awareness of the strength from behind bolstered hope. Therefore, he is a dead prince. Mandak's voice was heated. Silence. Courage. Hope found courage. He is very much alive. I've seen him, spoken with him. Slowly leaning forward, Keiko now focused on Hope. The patch. Is it still there? Yes, it is, Hope said. And I've gone through to his world. Keiko's eyes narrowed. The blackness unnerved her, but not as much as before Agent Mike had calmed her. However, the nagging sense that Keiko Bays wasn't the same man she'd known persisted. It was as if his body was a cloak for something else. Then it came to her. Baby Moses squirmed in his sleep. She loosened the hold that she'd unconsciously tightened. The eyes, the aura. To save? Keiko suddenly looked away, leaning back on his chair as if her scrutiny was too much. His world, his world. Mandak's voice was filled with derision. It's all a myth. Paradise belongs to everyone, not just to the pseudo-prince and the so-called loyals. He repositioned himself and glanced about, as if looking for the greater audience he was used to. It's for those who unite together under one rule, one belief. He was actually contradicting his earlier statement. He paused, then raised his bulk ceremoniously, standing to his feet. He directed both hands towards Keiko. Here we have him, the true prince who rules the sea, the land, and the air. With hands outstretched, he continued his declarations. His worship. Chills ran through Hope. I beg your pardon? A smug look enveloped Mandax's face. It will soon be officially declared, this new title. His worship. He stepped farther away from the table. Light from the window behind him transformed him into a shadow. Scarlet looked over at him, smiling fondly, indulgently. Mandax continued. Worship only him in the sea. Worship only him on the land. Worship only him in the air. 6 words in each, Scarlet Babylon said, clapping gleefully. She grimaced at Agent Mike, then looked at Hope and winked. 3 sixes, easy for people to remember. Confusion washed over Hope. She felt like Alice in Wonderland, trapped in some bad dream. Keiko, with his attention still fixed on Agent Mike, was smiling contemptuously. Mandax sang out, Ms. Kanisa, Hope, I may call you that, may I not? What is it with this confusing trio, Hope thought. Hope, Mendex began again. The world will fall under his rule, his mandate. Higher than a king, he will be worshipped, for he is God of this world, and all will bear his mark as a sign of allegiance. His mark? Hope asked. The three sixes, darling. Scarlet eased out of her chair and stood behind Keiko. Her red-tipped fingers caressed his shoulders. Shall I tell her, or will you, your worship? Keiko once again leaned forward, displacing Scarlet's grip. He placed both hands on top of the table. On his left hand was a ring, a thick band of antiquated silver. Hope couldn't recall ever seeing it. It also had a rounded, raised surface on its front with an insignia on it. Her eyes were drawn to it. Examine carefully, beloved, Keiko said. Every person from ages 12 and up will bear this symbol on their person, containing every piece of information known about that person. Hope's mouth grew dry. Her vision blurred. His use of beloved mimicked Prince Adani's endearment for her. But unlike the sense of protection and assurance from Prince Adani, it evoked an aura of control and manipulation. In honor of my person, he continued, my kingdom, my domain, where no one will want for food, clothes, shelter, someone to worship. Hope's eyes cleared. The ring, the symbol drew her, mesmerized her, yet repelled her. The mark of the world chancellor. The ring held the insignia of a serpent-like dragon with three markings above its head. Then it came to her. The Truth Tome wasn't just a book of instructions, history, and wisdom. It was also prophetic. It spoke of the future, and it had spoken of this very thing. Keiko continued, if you, my beloved, enter my kingdom, those who are with you will be persuaded and will also benefit. They will no longer suffer or be ostracized. His loving smile nauseated her. I'm offering you the opportunity to be the first to realize this new freedom, this new utopia. You will be the first to receive my identification. Where baby Moses had pressed against her chest, something burned. What was it? Then she knew the answer, and now she knew with whom she spoke. The world spirit, head of the Vouchies. Hope became resolute. I cannot, she said in a voice so strong it seemed to ricochet off the walls. The burning of her lamp pendant cooled. Keiko's coal black eyes were slowly changing. The aura of Tassabe surfaced forcefully. Rage had turned his eyes bloodshot. Or were they fully red? Baby Moses whimpered in his sleep. Agent Mike's hand returned to Hope's shoulder. It tightened, as if he knew this moment was her battle, not his. You reject me now, and you will regret it for all eternity. Keiko slowly rose to his feet, his eyes black once more. What you experienced on the other side of the patch was an illusion, a lie to draw you into a kingdom that can only be here under my rule. Hope wanted to leave. Agent Mike's grip remained firm. The lies continued. Every person has their own destiny, charts their own course. I will help them accomplish that. His voice became more sinister. But those who oppose me, I can make disappear, like those three who defied me and along with their radical friends attempted to assassinate me. Now the truth of the 3 dissenting council members was out. Words came to Hope suddenly and strongly. But you wish to dominate this world and turn us away from the one who designed and built it, from the one who formed us, from the one who loves us. Love? A coward's way. And your way is selfish, arrogant, and hateful. Courage. It filled her. Her back was firm against the chair. He is selfless, humble, and is good. The rage was about to explode. How dare you compare me to him, that so-called prince? Vehement curses erupted from his mouth. He ascended the throne I should have had. His death should have sealed his doom in darkness forever. Courage continued to flow. The darkness is your domain. The eternal light is where he dwells now and forever. You, stop! You will be eternally damned. She couldn't believe she had said that, but the truth of it flooded her. Just as Keiko was about to explode, Agios's presence. Scarlet Babylon glanced around, fearful. Mandax Nabian looked as if he needed somewhere to hide. Agent Mike moved from behind Hope to stand at her side. You, he said, looking at Keiko, cannot be compared to him. He who brought you into being and made you beautiful and gave you a position of leadership. You knew the highest power of goodness and of love, yet you gave into evil and hate, desiring what did not belong to you, wanting to be worshipped instead of worshiping the one who formed you. Power surged in the room. Purity, goodness, light. What is it? What is it? Scarlet screeched, clawing at her arms as if to dislodge something unpleasant. You are counterfeit. You have stolen the world. Now you wish to steal the bride, Agent Mike continued. Just as Keiko looked as if he would burst a blood vessel, there was a sharp knock on the door. Silence. The presence and the power gradually diminished. Baby Moses woke up. The pleasant-faced officer opened the door. Pardon me, your worship. Sir, we've just spotted a merchant ship. We believe the fugitive Nathaniel Kanisa is on board. That's the end of chapter 37. My goodness, there's a battle here. There's the battle here. And Nathan is coming right into it. But Hope is certainly showing a difference. Is she not? Proud of her. All right, so I'll leave you there at the end of 37 and welcome you back for 38 to see what unfolds as we approach the conclusion of this story. Take care.